Tonight, the revenge candidate.
For those who have been wronged and betrayed, I am your retribution. I am your retribution.
Former President Donald Trump dominates this weekend's major Republican conference. Plus, miraculous stories of hope.
If I explain the story, I will cry. It was like the apocalypse.
As the need for disaster relief in Turkey grows. And makers for heroes.
It looks like it's going to work, so we're very, very excited.
Israeli-made tech providing real-life solutions for disabled people. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. Former President Trump vowing an epic battle against sinister forces. Good evening in Washington. I'm Jenna Browder. The 2024 race for the White House kicking into high gear, and it seems no one is perhaps more ready for the political battle than number 45. The Conservative Political Action Conference, or CPAC as it's known, sweeping through the D.C. area over the weekend. While more candidates formally announced their intentions to seek a White House bid, and others inch closer. CPAC was still about former President Trump. CBN's Matt Galka has our top story.
In 2016, I declared, I am your voice. Today, I add, I am your warrior. I am your justice. And for those who have been wronged and betrayed, I am your retribution. I am your retribution. Not going to let this happen.
Trump closed out the weekend to the delight of his supporters.
I have a lot of friends that have said President Trump's lost his mojo. President Trump's lost nothing. When he starts back on the campaign trail, everyone will see. And I truly believe that if you were ever a supporter, you're still a supporter. If you called yourself a supporter and now you're thinking differently, you were never a true supporter.
This is the battle. This is the hill that we'll die on. We'll bring President Trump back.
2023 marked a big change for this event. Started in 1974 with Ronald Reagan as the keynote speaker, it grew to become a premier destination for rising conservatives. As Trump's domination of the convention has grown, audience numbers have thinned. Still, the former president easily won the weekend straw poll for the GOP presidential nomination with 62% of the vote.
We've lost the popular vote in the last 7 out of 8 presidential elections. Our cause is right, but we have failed to win the confidence of a majority of Americans. That ends now. If you're tired of losing, put your trust in a new generation.
2024 candidate and former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley didn't let the Trump-friendly audience temper her message. The partisan heckling didn't sit well with Juan Echeverry, one of the few attendees who seemed ready to move on.
I got a little bit heated because I think that the Republican Party is sometimes getting a little bit of a cultist mentality, that we think that Trump is kind of like deserves the presidency, that it was stolen from him and he has a birthright to it. That's not the case. He's going to be challenged, and rightly so.
The only other likely candidate who spoke here was former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Compare that to 2016, when more than a half dozen addressed the crowd. Another sign why some have labeled this year's event TPAC.
Not just here at CPAC, but everywhere I go, is President Trump is the guy they want back.
I am a Trump supporter 100%. I believe Ron DeSantis is he's a great governor, and I think he should stay there for another 4 years.
If he runs this time against Donald J. Trump, the MAGA movement will destroy him.
Meanwhile, in Florida, just a few miles from Mar-a-Lago, another influential conservative group had their own competing event. The Club for Growth brought in DeSantis, Haley, Pompeo, Senator Tim Scott, and former Vice President Mike Pence, among others, to talk to potential political donors. Trump was not invited. Matt Galka, CBN News.
All right, thank you, Matt. And speaking of Governor DeSantis, he was in California this weekend speaking at the Reagan Presidential Library. DeSantis, who has yet to announce a White House run, as Matt mentioned, drawing a contrast between red and blue states in what many see as an audition for 2024.
And if you look over the last 4 years, we've witnessed a great American exodus from states governed by leftist politicians imposing leftist ideology and delivering poor results. And you've seen massive gains in states like Florida, who are governing according to the tried and true principles that President Reagan held dear.
The Ronald Reagan connection comes as 42% of Republicans who were asked to name the best president who's done the best job over the past 40 years point to Ronald Reagan, while slightly fewer, 37%, point to Donald Trump. On Capitol Hill, House Republicans are lashing out after an OBGYN group's silencing of pro-life doctors. The American Association of Pro-Life Obstetricians and Gynecologists claiming their group is banned from an annual medical conference in Maryland.
The only explanation we've received is a vague explanation that we disagree with ACOG, presumably on the issue of abortion. This is very interesting considering the theme of this year's conference, which is building bridges. However, ACOG is showing yet again that they have no desire to build bridges with those of us who disagree even a little bit with them on their position on abortion.
5 Republican lawmakers are now calling on the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, or ACOG, to end what they see as discrimination against pro-life doctors. For its part, in a statement to CBN News, ACOG said it, quote, welcomes exhibitors that align with our commitment to the advancement of evidence-based scientific information. And one of those 5 lawmakers is Congressman Andy Harris of Maryland, who co-chairs the House Pro-Life Caucus. Congressman, great to have you with us this evening. Thank you for joining us. So what do you make of that? ACOG says it welcomes anyone who supports its advancement of evidence-based scientific information. By that, I guess they mean abortion?
I don't know what they mean by that. You know, the evidence is pretty clear in an abortion. The mortality rate is 50%. I hope they can't argue with that. And I'm surprised that while only 7% of obstetricians and gynecologists in this country do abortions, why would they quash the opinions of people who disagree with them?
You know, is there a place for pro-life doctors today, or are they slowly being shut out of the medical community?
Well, no, but again, in some of the organized medicine, and whether it's the American Medical Association or the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, clearly their opinions are not welcome. Again, that meeting was actually co-hosted by the Association of Professors of Gynecology and Obstetrics, and you would hope that that academics actually look for differences of opinion to have a vital discussion that's so important.
Yeah. Do you know of any other instances like this where pro-life doctors have been excluded?
Look, again, a lot of my colleagues who are pro-life and academics, they try to hide it. They try to hide their pro-life feelings because they have the feeling that they would be excluded if they made their feelings known. That's never the way it should be in medicine or in academics.
You yourself are a physician. Beyond calling on ACOG to end its ban against pro-life doctors, Congressman, where does your committee go from here?
Well, again, we just expressed displeasure at their choice. I think it's always a bad idea to silence other people's opinions. Again, look, we think abortion is wrong. They think our position is wrong. So let's have a discussion. Again, the head of the organization that wanted to exhibit here, they challenged the head of ACOG, the American College, to come and debate her. But of course, you'll hear crickets from ACOG.
For people who, are pro-life, doctors or not, what's your advice to them in this battle for the sanctity of life?
Well, look, we won a huge victory in overturning Roe v. Wade. We're going to have to win that victory state by state now. But again, people are seeing that the wrongs of abortion. They're seeing how it was not just. Roe v. Wade was not a just decision. So we're on the winning side. We just have to hang in there.
All right, Congressman Andy Harris of Maryland, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And turning overseas to Russia's ongoing war in Ukraine. Tonight, the strategic city of Bakhmut is on the brink. Russian forces closing in, leaving Ukrainian forces vulnerable to attacks from 3 sides. And as the battle for Bakhmut rages, British intelligence reports say Russian forces have entered the northern suburbs of the city, destroying 2 key bridges and putting Ukrainian supply lines in jeopardy. And for more on this, we're joined by Bradley Bowen, Senior Director of the Foundation for Defense of Democracy's Center on Military and Political Power. Bradley, good to have you with us tonight. So let's start there. This is the first time in 8 months Russia is on the cusp of taking a Ukrainian city, and it comes at a high cost. Why has Bakhmut become so important?
You know, Bakhmut, when you look at it, is not particularly important strategically, right? You can make arguments about other cities that have been in danger or been fighting for it and made a clear case for their strategic importance. It's difficult to make that argument for Bakhmut. I think it's important because Russia's decided to make it important because, frankly, they need a symbolic victory. And you have this competition playing out between the Wagner group led by Yevgeny Prigozhin, this militia group, and the Russian military. And they're both trying to outduel each other to show who could be more successful. And just in the last day or so, Prigozhin was complaining about a lack of ammunition and wondering out loud whether the Wagner group was going to be the scapegoat for the difficulties the Russians have had. But a top U.S. general testified before Congress about a week ago and described the fighting around Bakhmut as like World War I. They've been sending human wave after human wave, just sacrificing these poorly trained Russians on the altar, frankly, of Putin's ego.
Oh, yeah, that is horrifying to hear. You recently wrote, Bradley, that Russia and Ukraine are engaged in an artillery war of attrition and that Ukraine needs tanks to break the impasse. Why are tanks so important in this war?
You know, tanks got a bum rap in the early weeks of the war because everyone remembers the 40-mile-long or so convoy of Russian tanks that just sat there and got pummeled. The reason they weren't successful is because they weren't supported by infantry or artillery and what we call in the United States combined arms. When you have tanks and you also have effective infantry, artillery, and aviation, and you combine them, they are formidable. Because after all, what is a tank? It's mobile. Mobile protected firepower. Would you rather firepower be stationary or mobile? You'd rather be mobile. Would you rather be protected or unprotected? So if you give the Ukrainians tanks along with the armored personnel carriers and the artillery and other things we've given them, you allow them to break out of this attritional warfare that is so costly and is frankly not on their side, and allow them to transition to maneuver warfare where they can start to attack these Russians who are reaching a culminating point and start to claw back some of their territory that's Putin's trying to take in this unprovoked invasion.
So German Chancellor Scholz met recently with President Biden in Washington. Is there a lack of political will to send large enough numbers of tanks to Ukraine to really make a difference?
There have been a lot of welcome and belated announcements from our European allies about sending tanks. A lot of checks in the mail, if you will, but precious few tanks actually being delivered. And so that's a major problem, that we haven't delivered nearly enough of these Western tanks that Ukraine desperately needs, as I've just argued. But another problem is we're going to give them what I call a tank petting zoo. We're going to give them a bunch of different varieties and low quantities. And that creates a real hassle for them because each one of these tanks is different and has its own sustainment, logistical, and maintenance requirements. It would be better that we give them large quantities of 1 or 2 tanks. And me and a colleague here at FDD have argued there should be the Leopard 2 tank that we provide.
Yeah, something more uniform. All right, Bradley Bowen with FDD. Thank you as always. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Coming up, unearthing miraculous stories as the relief effort in Turkey continues. It's been nearly a month since 2 devastating earthquakes shook Turkey, followed by multiple aftershocks. Miraculous stories of hope are still surfacing from the rubble, and the need for disaster relief keeps growing and could last for years at this point. CBN's Operation Blessing has seen that widespread need extending its time on the ground. CBN's Brody Carter has that story.
Here in Antakya, families have been forced to leave, seeking refuge elsewhere. But for those who've stayed behind, they're relying on the generosity of others across the globe.
But the reality is these people still have no homes, many of them no jobs because their businesses collapsed. So the effect is not only just that people have lost their homes, but they now have no means to even provide for their family.
There were 4 of us in the room, my husband and I and our children. My husband died, and so did my son.
Trapped under the rubble for more than 130 hours, Turkan is alive to tell her story of survival and face the reality of loss.
I need a helper and a home. I have nothing. With no son alive to work, I have nothing. I need help. We need electricity, water, a bathroom, kitchen.
Nejla Adahan recalls running out of her home, not being able to stand, and holding her family for what she thought was the last time.
If I explain the story, I will cry. It was like the apocalypse.
Before receiving temporary housing, Nejla and her family survived in this pigeon coop with roughly 10 others, lighting fires to keep warm. Now it serves as their washroom since their home is too dangerous to enter.
Tanrı'ya şükürler olsun ki işte hayattayız çok şükür.
Operation Blessing arrived shortly after the first earthquake hit last month. The plan is to stay for at least 6 months feeding, loving, and helping the people of Turkey any way they can.
We have our major stock is in food boxes that contain kind of your basic commodities of rice, oil, beans, flour, sugar. But we're also starting to hopefully purchase bulk items, as well as we have hygiene kits. So we're purchasing a lot of hygiene items. Our goal is never to push people upon what we believe, but rather to show them what Jesus' love looks like and wait for an opportunity to then talk beyond that.
OB coordinator Benjamin Britton knows disaster relief is often short-lived because stories often disappear quickly from the news cycle. That's why OB is here for the long haul.
The need is I mean, astronomical. I've never seen anything like it. And to think that even us being here for 6 months will likely be one of the few at that point where we're really having an impact. But it's not just about the physical impact, but about the spiritual impact. And not only just to those who don't know Jesus, but even just being able to come alongside churches and encourage them and pray for them and show them that they have people thousands of miles away that care about them and are here to support them. That's really the global church, and that's what it's all about.
Reporting in the Republic of Turkey, Brody Carter, CBN News.
And if you'd like to help Operation Blessing's disaster relief effort, you can call 1-800-700-7000, go to cbn.com or text OBDR to 71777. When we come back, putting simple tasks within reach, how an Israeli organization is making innovative tech for the disabled. For millions of disabled people around the world, simple tasks like playing an instrument or going to the gym are out of reach. But one organization in Israel is determined to provide real-life solutions to their daily challenges. CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell shows us how.
Abramson just received a gift not available in any store. 5 years ago, a war injury left him unable to play the musical instruments he loves.
These really special people here behind me have been working really, really hard for 3 days to develop a very cool kind of gadget that will help me play guitar better again, help me play drums again, and looks like it's going to work. So we're very, very excited and very, very thankful.
Abramson received a special gift at the event, Makers for Heroes. It's all part of the global mission of Tikkun Olam Makers, or TOM for short, to help the disabled.
We launched TOM inspired by a bold vision that called for the State of Israel and Jewish communities around the world to collaborate in helping 250 million people within a decade in all continents of the world, all countries, all cities, all religions, and all cultures.
At TOM, engineers, programmers, and product designers create solutions to help wounded veterans, like 34-year-old Dror Zuckerman. He needed a special brace to help with weightlifting.
This is the brace. Also have here the logo, and this is the rubber. This is how it functions. I put it on my leg, like this. Then it's very light. I can go to the gym, to go to the CrossFit and do whatever I want. Very good.
TOM partners with local organizations like Restart in Israel.
Restart's vision is to have every wounded soldiers should be back to normal life and integrated into society. And TOM vision is to take everything that was done here and take it to all the people in the world that need it. So together it's bigger than separately.
The company's vision goes far beyond the war wounded.
Our vision was to focus the remarkable energy and creativity of Israel's startup nation, to focus that energy on the needs of the people who are living at the bottom of the pyramid, people who are living with disabilities, elderly, and poor communities.
They focus on needs the mass market or governments won't reach.
That happens when their condition is rare, when the people are poor, or when the product requires a lot of customization upon delivery, so it cannot really be mass-produced.
59-year-old grandfather Mikal found a leg up to help him get up in the world.
I came to this project because before I have a problem in my leg. It's very heavy for me. And now my group and my team, it's give me small legs. And now I'm climbing very fast. And I'm very happy because it's new present for me.
AT&T Foundry collaborated with the Israeli startup Wearable Devices to help this pianist.
We were able to build a model that allows Ohad to get back to playing piano using his weak hand as well, which also has rehabilitative abilities which are beyond what we expected. And we're very happy and honored to help him make his dream come true.
All of the innovative technology becomes a gift to the world.
The trick of Tom is that all intellectual property created by all Tom teams around the world is deposited in the public domain, which basically means it belongs to nobody, but it also belongs to everybody.
Within 5 years, Tom has spread to nearly 20 countries and foresees a worldwide web of partners to help the disabled. Chris Mitchell, CBN News.
Still ahead, one pastor's inspiring leap of faith. Next on Faith Nation. Finally tonight, a North Carolina preacher is taking his faith to new heights. At 98 years young, Roy Jernigan is still finding exciting ways to share the gospel and stay in shape. Most recently, Jernigan celebrated his birthday by skydiving for the first time, giving God the glory in the process. After resigning from being a full-time pastor in Texas just over a year ago, the veteran preacher continued his ministry on Facebook, live streaming a weekly message from his home called Preacher Roy Ministries.
If you have been born again, if you are a child of God, everything in your life wants to be, needs to be controlled by the Holy Spirit of God.
And Jernigan says his life is his ministry, and his mission is for people to see Jesus in everything he does. All right, that's going to do it for Faith Nation tonight. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. See you right back here again tomorrow. Have a great night.